Hello, lovely little gay people in my phone. And due to today's subject matter, welcome straights. Last year, I did a video covering the scandals, discourses, and moral crimes of Love Island USA's 7th season. And what do you know? They keep making more of these things. Is this like annual or something? And while I could, and I am tempted to add my opinion to the choir of hot takes on this year's tributes, I decided no. We've all watched the season, we've all formed our camps, and most importantly, we've all picked our favorite internet recap commentators. Mine is Wilden. And yes, I'm very mad because who the fuck approved his PTO?
Man, fuck the repercussions, bro.
Anyways, I thought it may be a refreshing and productive pivot to zoom out. Examine not just what's happening inside the villa, but dare I say, beyond it. Love Island, as the brand, franchise, and entity we know it to be today, has existed for over a decade now. Premiering in 2015, it has spawned multiple spin-offs, launched a handful of celebrity careers, and of course, birthed a catacomb of discourses on the state of modern heterosexual dating. But if you watched my Love Island video from last year or are familiar with my ethos as a creator at all, you know my interest rarely lies at the surface, but at the root. Not what happened, but why we're talking about it, why it resonates, the what, who, where, and why of its significance. And with Love Island, it's pretty easy, because someone wrote a book about it. Enter the Villa, the unauthorized reality behind Love Island by Anna Peel, was released May of 2026 and essentially functions as a deep dive into the production, lore, and structure of the franchise, featuring interviews with a collection of significant producers and former Islanders. It is, as its prologue states, the result of unprecedented access through almost 1,000 hours of research and nearly 100 interviews with the show's cast members, presenters, producers, creators, executives, fans, and scholars. The only people who could tell the story of Love Island and reveal its secrets. So I read it. Here's tea. So to give an overview of the book's general structure, it's formatted pretty much chronologically as a series of statements about the foundational elements of the series throughout its evolution, backed by anecdotal evidence. For example, Anna covers the story of Liam Reardon and Millie Court, who coupled up on Love Island UK Season 7 circa 2021. In short, Liam goes to Casa Amor, a gimmick they launched in Love Island UK Season 3, where the men and women are split up into 2 separate villas and introduced to a new group of sexy singles, respectively. And Liam has a grand old time, and then returns to the original villa alone to reconnect with his original flame, Millie, who was a fan favorite. And he does this as if nothing ever happened. Millie is none the wiser. And the producers are basically like, wait, we can't let him get away with this. She's gonna find out when she watches the show back, and we're not gonna be able to get her reaction on camera. Thus, Mike Spencer-Hayter, executive producer of Love Island UK, says, quote, "It almost felt like she might go on to win the show on false pretenses if she doesn't know. So we were just like, let's air it and call it movie night." And thus, we have the birth of movie night, one of Love Island's most famed traditions that is now a touchstone of the brand itself. You see what I'm saying? The book chronicles through essentially every season of Love Island UK and US pre-2026 to varying degrees and uses case studies from notable Islanders to track the development of the show's structure as we know it today. Capiche? Which creates this interesting paradigm where up until chapter 13, where the infamous Love Island USA Season 6 is center stage, I'm like reading TV. It was so interesting. I've watched in full Love Island UK Seasons 8, 9, and 10, and Love Island USA Seasons 3, 4, 6, 7, and now 8. So there's somewhat of a lull in logic in my brain between reading about the Islanders from the seasons I haven't watched, i.e., quote, "He read to her from one of the 61 letters he'd written to her before he knew who she would be. Why haven't I given up?" Bergie said. "I really hope you're out there looking for a guy like me. I want to eat ice cream on the floor when we could so easily eat it at a table. I want to dance with you before going to bed." Taylor began crying. "Are you serious?" she asked when he made the request to be official. Yes, Taylor would be Bergie's girlfriend. And this may be a bad example because, Love Island aside, this is like an objectively sweet moment between Bergie and Taylor, 2 contestants on Love Island USA Season 5 who are engaged as of this year. But nonetheless, because I'm like reading it feels so odd. Like my fan fiction brain is on, and then I remember there's probably footage of these real people spitting food into each other's mouths. But on the other end of the spectrum, it's so funny to read the scenes I have actually watched and remember along with the author's descriptive prose. Like this.
Go on, do you want to show off even more in front of the boys, Mr. Perfect Bunny?
I'm just in shock.
Did I hurt your ego? You
telling you that you are a liar.
You don't care about me.
You are
Another
a
guy
liar.
walks in here
Now I
with
don't
muscle.
give a shit about you. Don't
Oh,
worry.
really?
Yeah, I don't give a shit about you.
You never did give a shit about me.
No,
Another
now
guy
I actually don't give a shit about you. You are a liar, actress.
Becomes Davide was finally activated, getting ready to deliver what would end up being the most quoted moment of the season. "They're gonna give you an Oscar!" Davide yelled, rolling the R langorously. Fake. Go on. Do you want to show off even more in front of the boys, Mr. Perfect Bully? Ekin said as she stalked toward him, appearing to relish every clump of her heels. Now I don't give a shit about you, Davide said, from under glasses that seemed to have cocked themselves crooked from his agitation. It would be his lone moment of physical imperfection on the season. You are a liar, Davide shouted. Actress! And then in parentheses, liar, 4 R's, exclamation point, act, hyphen, res. Like, I get the oddness is imminent because it's just a different medium of storytelling. What shit is so funny? To clarify my point here, it's not just funny, it's like the source material going through more and more levels of abstraction, you know, like the editors, the producers, the casting directors, the set designers even, and then through to the author. Like, it's just like, we're so far away from this actual real life moment that it feels funny. But it's also a commentary and a statement on like how we perceive what we're seeing, knowing it's been sifted through like so many like different people's perspectives. That's my point. But pros aside, I know how the show works. What I was more so looking for in this book, and what I assume you're most curious about as well if you're watching this video, is what's happening behind the curtain. And it does deliver. History-wise, Love Island was originally Celebrity Love Island, created by TV producer Richard Cowles, that aired 2 seasons in 2005 and 2006. Quote, when Cowles started working in television in 1992, he began producing what was called factual programming, unscripted shows in mundane, often corporate settings. In 2001, these shows would inspire Ricky Gervais to create The Office, set at a paper company in a stark gray town. End quote. Because of that background, Cowles became compelled by the idea that a TV show could be successful on the basis of standout personalities more than plot itself. On the original iteration of Celebrity Love Island, quote, in its original incarnation, however, Love Island did not fulfill its description as a dating show. It was good, but it was not about finding love, Cowles admits, because no viable relationships developed during filming. It focused on what could charitably be described as C-list personalities bumping against each other and playing games. The cast was composed of formers, former footballer, former soap actor, etc. So there were roots there, but no dice. Cowles hadn't hit the nail on what makes Love Island so addictive. But at its heart, Love Island was about turning everyday people into celebrities, and Cowles knew that. And with time, effort, and practice, the gist was grasped. In 2018, former CBS chairman, CEO, and alleged non-convicted serial sexual predator Les Moonves would greenlight Love Island USA as one of his last acts running CBS. But below him was Sharon Wong, CBS's senior vice president, and a pertinent character in the development of Love Island USA. And hopefully, a much better person. But most notably is Ben Thursby-Palmer, Love Island USA's executive producer and essentially the American equivalent of Mike Spencer Hayworth, to my understanding. Notably, they are both married gay men, which I find unsurprising, not necessarily bad, but also deeply interesting for many reasons. Anyways, a quick run-through on the little details. At least where the early seasons are concerned, prior to each season, there is an unfilmed mock season where the challenges are tested, etc., etc. It's very rare for mock contestants to make it into the show, but some have. In terms of production, there is a collection of producers. Executive producers are the game masters, like in Hunger Games. They move the chess pieces and create the obstacles for their chess pieces to overcome or succumb to. Field producers are the ones you'll hear Islanders talk about in interviews. They do the dirty work, plant ideas in people's ears, offer a biased listening ear, etc. The process of getting on the show is detailed as, quote, auditioning cast members fill out a brief form requesting photos, nuts and bolts biographical information, and answers to questions like, why do you think you are currently single? If they pass that stage, they are approved by groups of increasing import. First, casting producers, then executive producers, and finally, network executives. Applicants fill out a much longer questionnaire inquiring about everything from body count to the biggest misconception about themselves. As well as possibly getting them into the villa, this information can be used to produce them once they get there and as material for challenges, as we well know. The production detail I found most compelling was the layout the book provides of archetypes the show seeks to fill each season. And I quote, yes, girl, a woman who is game for anything that might happen in the villa. Generally seems like she would be doing something like this with her friends if she weren't on the show. The glue, an islander people turn to for advice. Often this person is in a stable couple. Note, if both people in the couple are glue, they become mom and dad. This term must be bestowed by another person or the islander is disqualified from parenthood. Brooder, a man who feels deeply and often sexily, prone to outbursts. Cheeky chappy, a boy, usually as or more invested in a male friendship as a romantic partnership. Woman with bite, a fiery female islander who speaks plainly, coined a Marmite personality by Olivia Atwood, a season 3 islander, after the divisive savory toast spread. Outsider, A non-Islander Islander, someone who seems like they don't belong on the show, often in a way that makes them appear too good for it. Really funny guy who maybe doesn't have the muscles. See name of this archetype. Villain. An Islander who runs afoul of the audience, either because they aren't interested in someone fans think they should be, or because they are perceived as playing the game in a way that keeps viewers from being able to forget that it is a game. Edge of fame. Someone who is adjacent to celebrity. This can be via a relative or previous partner, or their own appearance in a news cycle. Head turner. An unusually good-looking Islander. Unique selling point. An area of differentiation that immediately allows the audience to identify the Islander by that quality. Can range from an unusual job to reading books. I think for many reasons, mostly cultural, the formula varies between each franchise, but the method is tried and true. And speaking of franchises, the book also notes Mike Beale and Van Belagoy as essentially the global salesmen for the world domination of Love Island. The expansion of the show from UK to USA, to its first non-UK iteration in Malta, Greece, to Australia, to Germany, to Nigeria, is at the coaxing of a very intentional push. But the countries with the highest production budgets are UK, Germany, France, Australia, and USA. Anna notes that in certain places like Malta, for example, having a Love Island isn't even really about financial gain. It's like a fun toy that billionaires play with to please their daughters or wives or mistresses. It's a status symbol, like owning a sports team, which is kind of Squid Games as fuck. But work. The format also changes depending on regional culture. Like, in Love Island Holland, they don't allow challenges that include food because there are people alive there who lived through World War II and remember the famine it caused in the country. Same goes for the sexy stuff. Love Island USA's ability to show underboob got a huge win when the program moved from CBS to Peacock, its slutty sibling, in 2022. And in majority Catholic countries like Spain or Portugal, sexy stuff is even more intentionally stripped down. Or I guess the opposite. But one production element that is fundamental is the show's strictly implemented duty of care to the Islanders following the 3 widely covered suicides of people connected to the show. Sophie Graydon, Mike Thalassides, and Love Island UK's founding host, Caroline Flack, which the book covers at length. Mike from Love Island UK Season 3, who became infamously known outside of the villa as Muggy Mike, Muggy being a British slang term for essentially ain't shit, allegedly cashed in and attempted to revel in the public's perception of him before what the book calls a toxic relationship, exasperated personal issues, leading him to take his own life. The book is very clear that Caroline Flack loved hosting Love Island. She was enamored by the drama and immersed herself with the Islanders. They referred to her as a fun aunt. Her suicide followed the widespread publication of a legal case brought against her following an incident of alleged domestic violence after discovering text messages in her partner's phone that indicated infidelity. The press got photos of a bed covered in blood. The public assumed it was the result of Caroline's assault, when in reality, it was an act of self-harm. Her partner didn't wish to file charges, but an inspector who was not at the scene filed an appeal, and all in all, in my opinion, her position seemed deeply complicated and personal, but was not reported on as such by the media, leading to what was publicly presented as a voluntary step down from her hosting role, but was actually the network's decision. Katie Salmon from Love Island UK Season 2 was bisexual and told producers she'd prefer to couple up with a woman. She ended up on a date with Islander and fellow bisexual Sophie Graydon in a move that executives scoffed at the time, but producers allowed. The two seemed to form a genuine connection, and they kissed at the behest of the producers. But after a challenge where the Islanders read tweets from the outside, Sophie internalized that people felt she'd moved on too quickly from her previous connection, and decided to stay single with the intention of meeting up with her previous flame Tom on the outside, which naturally felt like a smack in the face to Katie. Quote, Sophie was condemned by fans for a trio of alleged crimes. They felt she had pretended to like Tom when he had truly cared for her, she coupled with Katie to win the show, and she had broken things off because of audience pushback. Essentially, the audience revolted because they had decided Sophie cared too much about what they thought. They would spend the next several years making those negative opinions very clear to her. I include all of this because I think it's important to make a distinction between Love Island having an internal production issue and, society having a society issue. These tragedies were not products simply of the production of Love Island as a show, but speculatively the public's response, the dehumanization of real people, and the, dare I say, overconsumption of their lives, relationships, morality, and humanity. If anything, it's cyclical. This thing, by virtue of its success, is designed to do this thing that society is not responsible or really safe enough to handle with care. They make the somewhat unethical thing, and we consume it in somewhat unethical ways. That's the agreement. Nonetheless, profit is king, and it made the network look bad. So networks allotted more budget into protecting its products, and by extension, its reputation. I quote, by 2023, social media had gone so hostile for Islanders that ITV changed the policy to lock their accounts for the duration of the season, rather than appoint a loved one to field abuse on their behalf. Notably, US just did this for the first time season 8. During my interviews, I didn't speak to a single latter season Islander who didn't feel looked after. Therapists had always been available, but now Islanders were actively being encouraged to use them. After season mental health care went from an ad hoc service that cast members had to request to each Islander being given at least 8 post-show therapy sessions, plus 14 months of proactive outreach from producers to determine whether more intervention was needed. These producers continue to check in to the present day. But notably, quote, in 2023 in the UK, Parliament passed the Online Safety Act, intended to keep people from experiencing trolling from unverified accounts and to hold social media platforms accountable for the content on their platforms. No such law exists in America. In the vein of capitalistic woke, the show has also made strides where it comes to diversity. After 2 Black former Love Island UK contestants, Marcel Somerville and Yewande Biala, testified in front of the House of Commons regarding the challenges of being Black on Love Island, now senior producer Coco Jackson says she is, quote, forever flying in wigs. I'm like, period. UK, which is currently airing its 13th season as I'm filming this, has been through a series of trial and error as it comes to format and ethics that suit the dominant culture. USA, on the other hand, found its stride in searching for anti-Islanders. Despite popular belief, it was actually Love Island USA Season 3 that kept this show in syndication long enough for Season 6 to make it require viewing. And the book accredits that to Karsten Berkey Bergerson, who spent this season serving flop-riz, essentially, to the point that all the female Islanders were trying to fundamentally change everything about him in order for him to stop embarrassing himself. Unbeknownst to him, though, audiences loved him, and he became a figurehead for the everyday anxieties of conventionally attractive shy nerds. Then he met Taylor Nicole Smith in Casa, who he'd placed 3rd with, and as of this year, the couple is engaged. From there on out, Love Island USA producers were looking for different, and they seemingly found the perfect concoction in Season 6's cast. Though the chapter that centers Season 6 notably only features prominent interviews from Rob Roush and Aaron Evans, which if you know anything about Love Island USA Season 6, is not the meat. Though credit and empathy where credit and empathy is due, they do go into many of their experiences and the little details of how production manipulated and skewed things that did affect their long-term mental health, respectively. Though I do think the book takes a somewhat biased approach to its reflection of the dynamics, I think a book like this is interesting because the author's in the story. She is not an objective narrator. She is in the book with you. Her perceptions of these events are the story. You don't actually get to hear from any of the people she interviews. Their narratives are framed within her prose and perceptions and potential biases around them. And that's fair. It's her book. But it's framed as this more apt and earnest depiction of these people we feel like we know but don't, when really it's just a reframing of them with a new overseer. Because as many interviews as there are in this book, we truly do spend the most time with Anna, which left me with questions. So I asked her, who are you?
I'm Anna Peel. I'm a contributing editor at Vanity Fair, and I wrote Enter the Villa, which is the unauthorized reality behind Love Island.
We've received the book through your framing. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to write this and how do you feel about Love Island as a concept?
So I first wrote about Love Island in 2022 for Vanity Fair. 2 cast members and the former host of Love Island UK, Caroline Flack, died by suicide. And so I was really interested in how the show responded to that, how they changed things to protect Islanders and their mental health, how they changed their vetting process to make sure that people who went on the show are resilient enough to actually not only go through the process of being on the show, but then to have the kind of fame that you get from being on Love Island, where the fans really feel comfortable expressing their opinions about you and telling you because they, Islanders will say this, they put me here. I'm here because of them. And so they kind of feel beholden to them, but then they're also so used to, literally they're voting, the fans are voting on which are their favorite Islanders. That's how the show works. So it's a very different relationship than most dating series. And then so after the US became a huge hit in Season 6, I started thinking about it again. And then it just became the biggest show in America. Mm. And this year is even bigger than Season 7, which was... Wow.
The biggest?
Yeah, it was the biggest. Season 7 had more viewing than the second most watched show by almost 100%.
Wow.
So twice as many people were watching it as the next most watched show. And then this season's even bigger. So it's just I think I wanted to understand, okay, beyond like how the show is made. Like I wanted to know more from like a fan perspective. Okay, the things we've seen, what was really going on behind the scenes? How were they set up by producers? What were they hoping would happen? What was going on during it? How did they react to what did happen? How did it impact the Islanders, like both like in the scenes and then afterward? And then why are we so obsessed with it?
And after doing all that research and immersing yourself, like, or as Sincere would say, emerging, had to. What's your take? Like, what do you personally think of the ethics in the world around it?
It's the epitome of of reality TV. Were you scared for a second? You're like, oh no. Oh, no.
That was so funny.
No, it's just like I do think when I talk to the UK producers about kind of the morality of the show, like it's like, okay, like from a moral perspective, like how do you think about like this person is going to be impacted by what they're doing in an environment that you set up on a show that you edited, and they don't know really how people are perceiving them until they leave. And they were like, we don't think about the morals. They're like, we think that we're fair because we always give everyone a chance to like let things play out and let them resolve their situation and learn from it. But they're like, we don't think about the show from a moral perspective. And I think like in the US, there's much more of an ethos of like, we're going to put you in a position where you can screw up, but then we're going to give you the chance to redeem yourself. And if you hurt somebody, then like you kind of get punished within the world of the show, either by the viewers or by the other Islanders.
Do you think they do that as a facet of protecting them in the outside world? Like redemption arcs are kind of a protection mechanism?
That's a really good point. Yeah. I don't think they say like, oh, we don't set people up for redemption arcs. Because I was like, oh, Huda, like you set her up, you know, to do that.
For sure.
But they were like, no, with anybody, like we weren't. I guess what I'm saying is like they're not like, oh, we want to have a redemption arc for Huda, but they're like anybody who like has a really bad moment. You can see when things reset. You can see when someone like after movie night, if someone's really defensive or like in a like says something like out of pocket, like in the next scene you'll see them cool down. And it's like they're talking to the other Islanders, they're talking to producers, they're talking to the psych team. So it's like people are kind of getting a perspective shift. So like kind of like in real time, they're not like hopefully spiraling and spiraling and spiraling and spiraling down to hell.
I talked to like a handful of people like connected to the show. Like what were your impressions of the culture surrounding the difference between UK and US producers?
Well, there's a lot of longevity on both shows, more so than there is at Bravo, like at Bravo shows or at The Bachelor. Like the people who created the show in the UK are still working at ITV. And, you know, there are people, the person who is in charge of the show right now has been working on the show since the first season. There are a lot of people, it's like kind of like a more familial environment. So that's really interesting. And it's the same in the US, but obviously it's been on for less time. And yeah, I think that the way that they approach the show is like a little bit different. Like in the UK, they say like, this is a show about people finding love. And in the US, they say like, this show is about the ultimate summer vacation. So it's just like a little bit of a different in mindset. And then I think like tonally the show is a little bit different because in the UK, they have kind of like defensive humor a little bit. So there's a lot more like what we call banter.
Yeah.
And then in the US, it's just like a little bit more earnest. I think you get some of those more direct, like kind of sincere conversations.
What do you think? Because this discussion, I think this year especially, has been up and coming around sexuality in the island. Like, do you think that's plausible, having a queer Love Island? Like, how did the producers talk about it? Because both of the showrunners are gay men who are married, right?
So the person who was running Love Island in the UK has now been promoted at ITV. But yes, for a very long time, they were both gay men. And the showrunner in the US is a gay man.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, in the UK, I think they think a lot more about like, oh my gosh, it's going to mess up the numbers. Like, it's like we have like this many male bombshells and this many female bombshells. So they're like, ooh, it's kind of going to screw up. They can't always like plan, but they can have things ready to go when certain things happen in the villa. So they're like, okay, we're going to throw this person in or this person in. And so like limits their options, right? If they can't do everything that they plan to do. And the US, I think that they're much more like open to that. Although there has been a same-sex coupling in the UK and there hasn't been in the US yet. There was one on Games, which is like technically a US property, but it's not Love Island USA like proper. And I think that they're really excited about that. And the showrunner told me, like, we love showing those stories. Like, he wants to do more of that. It's just a matter of, like, numbers, because you want everybody who's in the villa to have multiple options. And there have been men on Love Island USA who are bisexual. They just haven't wanted to make that public, so they didn't talk about it on the show. There have been, like, several women who have been openly bisexual and like thought about coupling with women.
Yeah.
And so I would love to see more of that. Ariana's called for it, and like, yes.
My queen.
Yes.
I loved the chapter about Ariana because I think that like really set the stage for season 6, because season 6 was her first season, right? Yeah.
Right after Scandival.
Yeah.
And it was like, I know. And it was just like, it was Scandival, and then we had to watch the season where like she had to just be around Tom like the whole time, but they like weren't together, and they were living in that house, and it was just like they're just like trapped together. And then it's like, and then we just got to see her in the villa like looking amazing in slow mo.
I saw this tweet that was like, Ariana's acting so shocked when they're shooting at each other, like she didn't tell that man to die.
Do you want anything? For you to die.
I think one of the most pertinent things for me as a Love Island viewer, and what got me to start watching US at season 5 when no one was, was because they always prioritize having 2 dark-skinned black women in the starting lineup, which in some ways some could argue is a bit gimmicky, but I love. And I know that there's a lot of contention around that in UK and the way diversity functions and race functions. This is something I made a video about Love Island last year, and like, I don't know if you remember, Janae Craig and the Kenny scandal was happening simultaneously to like Whitney. What was her man's name? I'll put the photos on the screen. But like those situations where it was like a mixed race man and a dark skinned black woman, like, and the man kind of did the black woman dirty in like a racialized way, but Janae was like praised and sent thousands of dollars in PR, and Whitney was like picked apart by the media and by the fans primarily in the UK. Like, how do you think race functions differently, or how did the producers, in your opinion, try and formulate race within the show differently?
I think that in the UK it really started out like the creative team and most of the people who are on screen were white. You know, so it's like it almost felt like it was like a show originally like for and created by white people, and then there happened to be some people of color on it. And as it evolved, I feel like even like the slang that they used, the slang was very like, it was like Essex slang, or it was just like a very particular kind of slang. And I think if you watch throughout the seasons, especially I think starting in season 5, we got like Ovi, we got, you know, we had Yewande, we had Amber, we had Michael, you know, we had a lot. But it's like, I think that the cast started to be more integrated, and then the way that they talked started to like be inclusive of how everybody talked, not just how like what were considered to be kind of like the monolithic group was talking. And then US started on CBS, and the way that they cast it was also kind of like, it felt like a kind of white centric show because that's how CBS was seeing it. But then the viewership, it was over indexing with black viewers, and it was like Black Twitter was like talking about it. And so like it was a show where the audience like was telling the show what it should be. And then so the casting immediately started to reflect that. CBS kind of turned over casting to ITV America and the casting team that they work with outside of them. And it's just like, okay, like, here's who's watching, here's who should be on the show. And so it just felt like it immediately opened up and just became like what it should be. And I don't know that they're like necessarily like thinking like, oh, like there have to be like 2 dark-skinned black women, but like they are consciously thinking, like, I know that having Islanders of Asian descent is something that they are making a really conscious effort to do, and something that they feel that like they failed at in the past. But like they are always thinking like, who do we want to be here, and how do we make sure that when they're there they're in a position to succeed, and the other islanders are attracted to everybody who's there, and they're not being put in a position where, as happened like in early UK seasons, it's like mixed race islanders or Black islanders were like being left on the bench
repeatedly.
Yeah. Historically. And it's like, that's really damaging. And one of the people I spoke with, Marcel, who was on season 3 and then All Stars season 2, like talked about how they had wanted to put him in season 2 as a bombshell. And he's like, so I'm going to come in as the first fully Black islander, and then I'm going to like steal someone's woman, and like based on who's been in the show, like it might be a white woman, it might be a light-skinned woman. It's like, are people going to come after me, and like how is that going to look? And he was already thinking, like, knowing the abuse that people can get. And like islanders told me like they received really racist messages, and a lot of those islanders were in the UK. And so like the team obviously doesn't want that to happen. Of course nobody does, but it's like it does happen.
Yeah. That being said, like, how do you think, because we're seeing this pattern emerge where islanders are getting pulled out of the villa for resurfaced clips of people like saying slurs, etc. Do you think like there's going to be a consistent standard there? I'm curious like how sustainable that is, as like Love Island tries to create this bubble of racial safety that does not exist in this country. To the point, like, I'm probably maybe an outlier in opinion, but I think, I kind of assume everybody said it at this point, so it's kind of like a thing that it felt important when it happened to Sierra because it made a statement at that time, but now it's like there's like 3 different people, and like probably they're gonna cast a couple more if you make it through all the psyche vows and everything, and then there's a clip of you on Snapchat saying the N-word in 2017 and now you're gone, like how sustainable is that? Do you think that that's something? And actually also with this season, like TT's allegations of like having a criminal record coming out, which I did know in the book you distinguish that there's a 0 tolerance policy for hate speech, but that has nothing to do with like criminality,
Right.
So like where is the line, and like what do you think is the future of preserving the bubble in like a racialized or ethical sense?
I mean, Love Island is a reflection of society, and like there's a lot of racism in society. So, but I do think that like compared to other reality shows, it does do a lot better. And I guess it doesn't bother me if the standards in Love Island are higher than the standards in our like racist society.
But do you think that'll stay consistent?
I think so. I think it's, first of all, I think that people have gotten through, right? Because it's like someone took a video of a Snapchat that was on a private account. So it's just like there are things that the team isn't catching during vetting that like I think would be almost impossible to catch. But like they got Vasana, the first woman, out before the show even started.
Yeah.
Alana was in there for a couple days, but they yanked her. And it's like, it's happening pretty quickly. So I think it becomes more complicated when it is somebody like Sierra. Like it took them a few days to work through the whole legal process, and like within NBC Universal, within ITV America, just like within the villa about like how do we handle this? Because it's like, it's not just a moral or ethical consideration. It's also like she's like a main character on the show.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like so then this plot line stops. So it's like you're taking into consideration all these different things. I think like if somebody is just getting there, I think it totally makes like the most sense to just like
Yank them out, yeah.
yank them. But even with Sierra, it's like it was the right thing to do. So even though it was like legally complicated and it was complicated from a production standpoint, I think that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, and so like I genuinely think that it's both good, and I think it's sustainable for the show because you want the show, if the show is supposed to be the ultimate summer vacation.
There's no racism in paradise.
Well, we hope, we pray. But like it changes what you're talking about. And like people who produce the show and Ariana said to me, like, I wish that we could have those conversations within the text of the show.
Agreed.
Like, I wish we could see it on After Sun or something like that, or like even like with the Islanders in like a separate kind of like segment, just like talking things through with them. But like on the show itself, like, how do you set that up so that that can be like a productive conversation? And it's like, because you don't want to have the right conversation in the wrong way. And like, I think we've seen that on other reality shows too.
But that's something that production is like talking about, like having an aspect of it be disseminated. I used that word wrong. What is the picked apart? Is there a synonym? Is there a fun synonym?
Dissected?
Dissected.
Yeah.
Like within the context of the show.
Yeah. I mean, but it's not something that everybody wants to do.
Like the Islanders.
Well, I mean,
The executives.
yeah, some producers think like there's a way to have this conversation there, and then some producers think like this isn't the venue for this. And if we can't do this appropriately, then like we shouldn't do it. And then some people think like there's a way to expand what the show can be so that it can include that.
Yeah, I feel like Sierra and Teffy are like kind of trying to in the season after. I've actually enjoyed After Sun this season. They're getting a lot of flack, but I do see them trying to talk about misogyny and like queerness. Teffy said Happy Pride. I was like, right, your girlfriend's But I think we're running out of time. I could do this all day.
Yeah.
But I want to say, I'm titling this video, I read the unauthorized Love Island book, so you don't have to. So tell the audience why they should read the book.
There's so much in the book. It's just like genuinely so much behind the scenes juicy stuff. There's just so much more in this book than you can get to in 50 minutes. And it's just like hearing from the Islanders themselves, I think, is why you watch the show. It wouldn't be the same to just like read like a recap of Love Island. It just feels different when you watch it, and this feels different when you read it.
And what's your favorite chapter?
The one where it comes to the U.S. and the one about Bergie. I love Bergie.
Chapter 13 is the one about season 6, right?
Oh,
you're talking about when they shifted to the U.S.
The chapter about season 6 is very good.
Yeah, that was juicy.
Because it's like we got Rob Roush and Leah, and then we have the story of Aaron and Kaylor and like Aaron's arduous journey and like what he felt like were unethical production practices manipulating him. And then also the love story of PPG and Serena and Cordell.
And everybody, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at peelbanana. It's P-E-E-L-E, banana. And then on Twitter, I'm not calling it X, at bananapeel.
And the link to Anna's Instagram and your own copy of the unauthorized Love Island book down below. Now back to me. Overall, I find this book as a concept interesting because Love Island in and of itself is a shiny plastic box around some gorgeous little brat dolls that we as a culture want to dismember piece by piece. And to gain the sadistic pleasure of that dismemberment, we have to kind of pretend the box isn't there. But we also can't. The acknowledgement that Love Island is like kind of unethical comes up in plenty of think pieces that come across my For You page, but it's usually kind of skirted over because like we know. And that's not the point. I rarely see anyone take a stance against Love Island's ethics because like we like it low-key because it's unethical. And this book toes that line in an interesting way. It's self-aware, but never condemning. It seeks to unravel the show's truth by showing you its underbelly. But after reading it, I didn't get the satisfaction I was looking for. And that's no shade to Anna. But I think this book seeks to satiate a craving that is in and of itself a logical fallacy. And I sensed Anna grappling with this as well towards the end. That the compelling underbelly of Love Island is not what is taking place in the small village of production tents surrounding that villa, or the control room documenting the ground's every wind blow. It's that it's fucked up. Like, to even engage with the show, the media storm around it, this book, you have to suspend your ethics a little. But, like, really, that's not Love Island's fault. It's ours. The question I think I was waiting for Anna to ask the producers or the Islanders was, do you think this is good? How do you weigh the morality of it, the potential consequences, and the potential benefits? Not that I'm in any position to judge. I fucking love that show. It's not about condemnation, but a genuine interrogation and exploration of not only the literal cogs of the show, but its function in current day society. But maybe I'm just annoying and everyone just wants to know how the boys stop themselves from getting low bonies during challenges. I don't know. But the real point, the real facet of culture this show fills, as I stated in my first Love Island video, is catharsis. It's about projection. It's about seeing our faves win and our ops fall to validate the version of the world we'd personally like to live in. And I guess that's fine. I just wish there was more, I guess. I wish we could do something with all of it. But honestly, Love Island Theme Park Immersive Experience 2030. Mark my words. But by the meta epilogue Anna includes recounting her time getting a tour around the villa, I get the vibe she feels the same. Like the true answer is slightly beneath her, but she can't state it without kind of undermining the book itself. And all in all, that's really interesting. But I don't know, you read it.